Gentlemen, please welcome Chairman of the Board and co-founder New Leaders, John Schnur.
So I am so honored to be here today at Opportunity Nation with, I see many people in the audience, some of America's greatest leaders. I think this summit can be a window onto America at our best, can be, with leaders united in purpose and diverse in backgrounds from virtually every sector of American life, from education, business, the nonprofit sector, communities of faith, religious leaders, military, government, community leaders, forging commitments here with leaders who can back those up to create economic opportunity and mobility for all Americans. Opportunity Nation, Mark Edwards, the team have given this group and this country a huge opportunity. But this only will be a window onto America's best if we forge commitments here, and our country does, and we stick to those day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, in overcoming obstacles that come along the way. And the proof is in the pudding on that for all of us and for our country. I personally am so deeply grateful to our country. Like so many of us, I'm kind of in every America, so many of us have our stories of opportunity and challenge. My great-grandfather, Sam, whom I was very close to, came as an immigrant at the beginning of the 20th century as a boy to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He had an elementary school education, and at that point, this country gave him the freedom that he needed with that education to start a business, raise a family, and start contributing to his and our community. He made our lives possible in so many ways, and he was a beloved friend and great-grandpa to me. Always said America gave him what he needed. When I was a boy in Milwaukee, I began to see big opportunity but big inequities. I had friends who were getting a great education and great opportunities and jobs, and I had friends who had the same level of education that my great-grandpa Sam had received, who were being deprived of the opportunities that he had because no longer was an elementary school level, middle school education enough, and yet too many of our kids, even then, were getting that level of education. And at that point, when I was a child, like many of us back in the early 1970s, even then, only a quarter of the middle class had post-secondary degrees, only a quarter even then. And at that point, America was leading the world in education, inequitable still, not good enough, but leading the world. 25% middle class, post-secondary jobs, leading the world. Now, as my wife and I have 3 kids, as they're the same age that my great-grandpa Sam was when he came to this country a century ago, 2/3 of jobs today require post-secondary education. This is a change of extraordinary and rapid change by historical standards. And yet we've stagnated. We've gone from first in the world in education to 15th in high school degrees and the percentage of our young people with college degrees. Not because we've gotten worse, we've stayed the same, but because we haven't kept pace with the needs of tomorrow and today, and other countries have raced ahead. So now, we have to look at what do we do to create the opportunities for our kids that some, not all, of our grandparents and great-grandparents had. And let me tell you today about a few observations on the education front, only one front of the opportunity battle, with a few keys to success, I believe, and make a few commitments personally before I leave. First of all, in education, we are seeing some, despite inequities and inadequacies, we are seeing some tremendous successes in K-12 schools, public schools, preschool programs, community colleges that are beginning to provide breakthrough results for kids from all backgrounds, including low-income backgrounds. Breakthrough results. These are pockets of success in an era where we need systems of success. But I'm hopeful because frontline educators and parents and students are creating opportunities and success that, if we can take to scale, can change the course of educational outcomes in the country. So we've got to scale what works. Number 2, we need to eliminate the complacency we have as a country and ensure transparency. Stop lying to ourselves and our kids about how they're doing in education. Right now, 80% of Americans think our schools are in crisis, but 80% of Americans think their local schools are fine. Our schools are fine to do what yesterday's economy demanded, but not tomorrow's. So the question is, how do we ensure the transparency to arm Americans with this information so we can tap our ingenuity and creativity in order to forge better solutions? And third is we need to work together in a both-and way, not an either-or way. It's an absurd debate to say, do we need to focus on education or jobs? We need both. It's an absurd debate when we know that teachers are the most important factor in schools driving improved achievement for kids. It's absurd to say, do we need more accountability and higher standards for tenure or more support for teachers? This is the most important profession in America, I would argue. We need to have both. It's absurd to have arguments about whether we need to have more funding, protect funding in education on one hand, or reform and to make hard choices about how to make better use of funding. We need both. We all need to work together on both of these in education, on a both and front, in order to help America achieve and give opportunity to all of our kids. So let me make a few personal and organizational commitments today. And I hope you'll keep me accountable next year. And have I fulfilled these? And have we all fulfilled these? Year after year, are we making progress? Number one, today, I am thrilled on behalf of a whole set of leaders and organizations to launch a nonprofit initiative called America Achieves, which will be devoted to helping America embrace quality education for all as a national economic imperative and a moral and civic duty to prepare all of our young people for success in economic opportunity and in citizenship. We got to set big goals in this country, not small goals. At a time we're walking away from big goals in education, we need big goals to set, and we're going to work on that. More details to come. Number two, specifically to help address this complacency issue, I'm pleased to share that America Achieves, OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the Bloomberg Philanthropies, the Hewlett Foundation, the Kern Foundation, will make it possible for the first time for individual U.S. high schools to know how their kids are doing in their local school compared to the rest of the world. Right now, we know how our country is doing compared to the rest of the world, and states are, but we don't know how our own individual school is doing in a school-level system to the rest of the world. Now, that transparency, that information won't overnight give success to our kids, but it'll empower parents and educators to know what's needed. Commitment number three, I'm also pleased that with a different set of funders, that America Achieves and some funders to be shared next month are going to launch a Doing What Works national policy initiative to advocate for public funding to increase for those programs and efforts that are getting results and better outcomes to help our people and drive opportunity, and crucially, to actually reduce funding or overhaul programs that aren't getting results. And we'll unveil details of that policy initiative soon. Fourth, and finally, on a personal front, I was walking my son, Matthew Sam Schnur, to school, to our local public school yesterday. He's a first grade student. And we were talking about, I was telling him I'm going to be with some of America's best leaders from all these sectors, and he was pretty intrigued by that and had all kinds of thoughts and questions. And I dropped him off at school, as I often do, at the front door of school, and he walked in the door and looked behind and gave me a smile and kind of warned me with his smile not to follow him into the school building. And that's because I often follow him in, partly to make him laugh, but partly I think because I desire to sort of be with him and stay with him and our kids to ensure their success, which I know I can't do for the long term. So he warned me off with a smile. I didn't go in the school building, but I walked away knowing that while I can't go into his schoolhouse door every day and love the teachers he's got there, but even our school can do a lot better. But they're great teachers, can do better. But I resolved that I'm going to look Matthew and his sister Elizabeth and his baby brother Philip in the eyes and commit that I'm going to do everything I can do as a parent, as an educator, and a citizen to not only help those three kids, our three kids, succeed, but to work with parents and Americans across America to help America's kids succeed. And I ask you today to join me. We have to look our kids in the eyes, commit to them, stick with it. We will provide the education to help them succeed, not in yesterday's world, not in today's world, but in tomorrow's world. And if we stick to it, our kids will look back one day and say, thank you, and now we're on to the opportunities of our generation for what you made possible for us. So thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome